Sign this resignation letter or we terminate you immediately. Those were the exact words. After 21 years of dedicated service, I was given 30 minutes to decide. I chose resignation, but I wrote my own version, one carefully crafted sentence. 5 days later, their corporate attorney called at 7:43 a.m., her voice tight with panic. Ms. Vaughn, we need to discuss the precise language in your resignation letter. Logan Pierce, the CFO, went completely silent when I explained what I actually meant. But let me take you back to the beginning. Let me explain exactly how I ended up in that conference room at 4:17 p.m. on a Friday afternoon in October 2025, watching four executives realize they had just made a catastrophic mistake that would cost them everything they believed they had gained. My name is Anna Vaughn, and I am 46 years old. For 21 years, I served as Senior Director of Global Operations at Ascent Systems, a software development company based in Denver, Colorado, specializing in enterprise resource planning solutions for manufacturing companies. I started in July 2004 as a junior operations analyst, fresh out of graduate school with an MBA from Colorado State University, earning $42,000 a year and living in a studio apartment that consumed more than half of my monthly income. By October 2025, my annual compensation had reached $192,000, plus quarterly bonuses, comprehensive benefits, and stock options accumulated over 2 decades. I managed a department of 41 professionals across 3 continents. My division generated $63 million in annual revenue. I was not just another employee with an impressive title. I was the living archive of institutional knowledge that kept Ascent Systems functioning. When our CEO forgot critical details about a major client relationship, my phone rang. When finance needed historical data from 2007 that no longer existed in current systems, they contacted me. When board members wanted explanations for why certain processes existed, I provided those answers. My email archives stretched back 21 years, meticulously organized. I maintained vendor relationships that predated most of the current staff. I understood contract negotiations that took place before half of our management team had even graduated from college. For 21 years, I was absolutely indispensable, until suddenly, I was not. The problems began 8 months before that October confrontation. In February 2025, Ascent Systems was acquired by Dominion Corporate Holdings, a massive conglomerate valued at $11.4 billion that specialized in purchasing mid-sized technology companies, systematically eliminating expensive, experienced employees and replacing them with recent graduates willing to accept far lower compensation without asking questions. I had watched this exact pattern destroy 3 competing companies in our industry over the previous 18 months. I knew precisely what was coming. The acquisition playbook never changed. New management arrived, making reassuring promises about stability and continuity. Then they quietly removed anyone earning above $130,000 a year, replacing them with graduates making $68,000, who lacked the experience to recognize they were being exploited. The acquisition finalized on February 14, 2025, Valentine's Day, appropriately ironic. The new management team arrived on February 22nd. Our new CEO was Cameron Walsh. No, I need to correct that. Our new CEO was Cameron Foster, 35 years old, Yale MBA, previously an executive at a startup that burned through $40 million in venture capital before collapsing spectacularly. He had zero practical experience in enterprise software operations. The CFO was Logan Pierce, 33, formerly a senior consultant at Bain & Company, brilliant with financial modeling and Excel spreadsheets, but completely ignorant of how businesses actually functioned on a day-to-day operational level. The new COO was Levi Coleman, 37, who had been a vice president at Dominion Corporate for exactly 18 months, and believed he understood software companies because he had once managed one for 8 months before it failed catastrophically. They scheduled a mandatory company-wide meeting for March 3rd at 10 a.m. Cameron stood in our main conference room, a space I had personally designed when we relocated to the building in 2013, selecting every piece of furniture, negotiating every equipment contract, even choosing the specific shade of gray on the walls, and delivered the standard acquisition speech I had heard nearly word for word at 3 other companies. "We're incredibly excited about this partnership," he announced with rehearsed enthusiasm that fooled no one with real corporate experience. "Nothing fundamental is going to change. We deeply value your contributions. Your positions are completely secure. Together, we'll achieve unprecedented success." Dominion had acquired a sense specifically because of the exceptional talent here, and they were committed to preserving that culture and expertise. I had heard the same speech before, delivered with the same false sincerity. When executives promise that nothing will change, it means everything is about to change. I began updating my resume that very evening at 10:23 p.m., sitting at my dining room table with a glass of red wine. But I also started doing something else, something my father had taught me during his 32 years as a construction foreman fighting for workers' rights. I began documenting every email exchange, every process document, every contract clause, every vendor agreement, every client relationship detail, every policy, every procedure, every conversation that seemed remotely important. I backed everything up to 3 separate encrypted external hard drives, stored at home using military-grade encryption software. I had learned this lesson by watching other companies get acquired and strip out their experienced staff. They terminate you, lock you out of all systems immediately, and suddenly you have no proof of your work and no leverage to negotiate reasonable terms. The terminations began in March, exactly 4 weeks after the acquisition closed. On March 24th at 8:47 a.m., they fired 15 people, all over 42 years old, all earning more than $115,000 a year, all with decades of experience. Within 6 weeks, they replaced them with recent graduates making less than half the salary. Human Resources called it organizational realignment. I called it systematic age discrimination and wage suppression. I kept my opinions to myself and continued documenting every termination, every replacement hire, and every meeting where age or compensation was discussed. I recorded everything. In April, they began targeting me directly. It started with small things, being excluded from meetings I had attended for years. On April 18th, there was a quarterly strategic planning session I had facilitated for 9 consecutive years. My calendar invitation was suddenly canceled. When I asked Cameron directly about my exclusion, he responded with casual dismissiveness. "We're bringing fresh perspectives to that process. We appreciate your past contributions, though." On April 29, they reassigned 4 of my primary responsibilities to a 27-year-old manager named Grayson, who had been with the company for exactly 9 months and had no understanding of our legacy systems or the complex vendor relationships I had spent years building. On May 15, during a department-wide meeting with my entire team present, they openly questioned my decision-making abilities, implying that I was out of touch with modern operational methodologies, classic corporate intimidation tactics, designed to push me into quitting voluntarily so they would not have to pay proper severance. But I refused to quit. I continued showing up every day, performing my job flawlessly, documenting every slight, every exclusion, every undermining remark, and every act of disrespect. My personnel file was pristine: 21 years of outstanding performance evaluations, 0 disciplinary actions, and multiple recognition awards, including Operations Excellence in 2017, Leadership Innovation in 2019, and the Distinguished Service Award in 2022. They could not terminate me for cause, and they knew it. Before I continue, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you never miss stories like this. Your support helps this channel reach people who need to hear the truth. On June 27th, they tried a different approach. Logan called me into his office at 4:45 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. Always a bad sign. Friday meetings mean bad news. He said, Anna, we're restructuring operations to align with Dominion's global framework. We're eliminating your current position and creating a new role called Senior Operations Coordinator. You're welcome to apply for it, but the compensation is significantly reduced, $94,000 annually. I had been earning $192,000 plus substantial bonuses. This was a $98,000 pay cut for essentially the same responsibilities under a slightly altered title. It was textbook constructive dismissal disguised as corporate restructuring. I smiled politely and said, "I'll need some time to consider this." I went straight home and called Elizabeth Hartman, the employment attorney I had retained in April when the warning signs became impossible to ignore. Elizabeth had 28 years of experience specializing in employment law, with particular expertise in wrongful termination cases involving age discrimination. She had represented more than 180 employees in disputes with large corporations and maintained an 81% success rate. She charged $450 per hour, and I had already paid her $4,050 for 9 consultations. "They're trying to force you out," Elizabeth said after I explained the situation. "That compensation reduction is classic constructive dismissal. Do not accept it under any circumstances. Wait for their next move and document everything." I waited exactly 38 days. On August 4th at 3:15 p.m., I received the message I had been expecting. Cameron's executive assistant sent an email. "Mr. Foster would like to meet with you in Conference Room C at 3:15 p.m. today. Please make yourself available immediately." Conference Room C, not his office. That meant witnesses. That meant formality. That meant termination. I printed my resignation letter, the one Elizabeth and I had finalized 4 weeks earlier after multiple revisions, folded it carefully, and placed it in my jacket pocket. Then I walked to Conference Room C. At exactly 3:15 p.m., Cameron, Logan, Levi, and Stephanie Lambert from Human Resources were already seated on one side of the long mahogany conference table, like a panel of judges evaluating a defendant. Leather portfolios were neatly arranged in front of them, 4 identical pens, 4 identical expressions of practiced sympathy. Cameron gestured toward the lone chair across from them, the defendant's chair, isolated and exposed. I sat down calmly. I had mentally rehearsed this moment at least 60 times. "Anna, thank you for making time to meet with us," Cameron began with forced warmth. "We need to discuss your future with Ascent Systems. Translation, we're firing you. As you know, we've been restructuring to align with Dominion's operational framework. After careful consideration, we've decided to move in a different direction with the operations role. Translation, you're out and someone younger and cheaper is coming in." I said nothing. Elizabeth had trained me well. Let them talk, let them expose themselves. Stay calm. Logan leaned forward, his voice coated in false empathy. "This is obviously difficult, Anna. We appreciate your years of service, but we believe it's best for everyone if you pursue new opportunities elsewhere. We're prepared to offer you 2 options." He slid a manila folder across the polished table. "Option 1, Logan said, you resign effective immediately. We provide 3 weeks of severance, $11,077, plus your accrued vacation time and a neutral reference. A clean break. 3 weeks of severance after 21 years? It was deliberately insulting. Colorado law required no severance at all, and they knew it. They were counting on fear and exhaustion. Option 2, Levi added, his smirk barely concealed, you terminate due to restructuring. You receive nothing, no severance, no vacation payout, and your file will reflect redundancy, which may not help future employment prospects. It was a threat, clumsy, obvious, but unmistakable. I opened the folder. Inside was a pre-written resignation letter on company letterhead, already prepared, waiting for my signature. It stated that I released Ascent Systems and Dominion Corporate Holdings from all claims related to my employment or termination. It was a trap. Signing it would erase my rights to pursue legal action for age discrimination, constructive dismissal, or wrongful termination in exchange for $11,077. I looked at them, young, confident, certain they had cornered me. Cameron glanced at his smartwatch, probably thinking about dinner plans. Logan wore a faint smile of victory. Levi leaned back, relaxed, convinced the outcome was settled. I thought of my father, who spent 32 years as a construction foreman fighting for workers' rights. He taught me one rule when I got my first job at 15. Never sign anything without reading it 3 times, and never let people in expensive suits intimidate you with titles. "I'll resign," I said calmly. Relief washed over their faces. Cameron smiled broadly. "Excellent decision, Anna. Very professional. If you could just sign right here." "I'll write my own resignation letter," I interrupted. The smiles faltered slightly. "Well, we've prepared one that covers all the necessary legal points." "I'll write my own," I repeated firmly. "Unless you plan to dictate the exact words I can use in my personal resignation letter, I will write it myself." Cameron hesitated. He couldn't force me to use their letter without admitting this entire process was coerced. "Fine, write your own. We need it by end of business today, 5 p.m. "You'll have it within an hour," I said, standing. I walked out of conference room C at 3:37 p.m., leaving them with their pre-written documents, matching pens, and false sense of victory. I returned to my office, closed the door, locked it, and opened my laptop. I had already drafted my resignation letter 4 weeks earlier during a sleepless night, knowing this confrontation was inevitable. Elizabeth had helped me craft it. We spent 6 hours on a video call, reviewing every word, every comma, every potential legal implication. The letter was 1 sentence, 42 words. I read it for probably the 75th time, then sent it to Elizabeth via encrypted message. They just delivered the ultimatum: resign or be terminated. Are we still proceeding as planned? She replied in under 2 minutes. Perfect timing. Send it exactly as written. Don't add anything, don't explain anything, just that 1 sentence. Then wait. I printed it on Ascent Systems letterhead, signed it with my full legal name in blue ink, and made 4 copies. 1 for human resources, 1 for my personal records, 1 for Elizabeth, and 1 for my safety deposit box. Then I walked back to conference room C at 4:17 p.m., exactly 40 minutes after leaving. Cameron, Logan, Levi, and Stephanie were still seated, coffee cups in front of them, probably celebrating their perceived victory prematurely. I handed Cameron the letter without a word. He skimmed it quickly, barely reading. "Fine, fine, this is acceptable. HR will process your final compensation." "I need all severance details in writing," I interrupted, "including exact amounts, payment timeline, and confirmation of what's included." Logan rolled his eyes in that condescending way young executives do with people they consider beneath them. 3 weeks' salary, we already told you, $11,077. It'll be in your final paycheck. And my accrued vacation time? I have 142.5 hours. That's included. And my outstanding expense reimbursements? I asked. I had submitted receipts totaling $4,287 from a client meeting in Boston last month that hadn't yet been processed. "We'll include everything," Levi said dismissively, already standing to leave. "You can go now. HR will contact you about returning your laptop and access credentials." I left the conference room at 4:24 p.m., returned to my office, and packed my personal items into 3 cardboard boxes: family photographs, my coffee mug from a 2016 conference, a desk plant my team had given me for my 20th anniversary, and my favorite fountain pen, a gift from a mentor. My phone buzzed with messages from my team asking what happened, but I didn't respond. Elizabeth had been clear. Radio silence until they figured it out. Don't explain, clarify, or respond. I drove home at 5:04 p.m., set the boxes in my living room, poured a glass of wine, and waited. They figured it out 5 days later. Tuesday, August 9th, 7:43 a.m. My phone rang. Unknown number with a Denver area code. I answered on the 4th ring. "Anna Vaughn speaking?" "Miss Vaughn, this is Jonathan Winters, General Counsel for Dominion Corporate Holdings. I need to discuss your resignation letter immediately. Are you available to talk?" I sat with my coffee and smiled. Here we go. "Of course, Mr. Winters. How can I help?" "There's some confusion about the language you used in your resignation, specifically the phrase, 'effective upon completion of settlement of all compensation, benefits, stock options, and other amounts owed under my employment agreement and applicable Colorado law.' Can you clarify what you meant by that phrase?" I opened my laptop to the detailed spreadsheet I had prepared with Elizabeth. 63 tabs, thousands of hours of meticulous documentation. First, my base salary through the resignation date, $14,769.23. Second, accrued vacation time of 142.5 hours at $92.31 an hour, $13,154.18. Third, outstanding expense reimbursements, $4,287. Those three items totaled $32,210.41, but that was just the beginning. What do you mean, just the beginning? His voice rose slightly. Fourth, my 2025 annual performance bonus. Section 6.2 of my employment agreement, signed March 7, 2018, guarantees an annual bonus of 80% of base salary for meeting operational targets. I didn't just meet targets, I exceeded them significantly. Our operations generated $63 million in revenue this year, 14% above projections. The bonus is payable upon termination for any reason, $156,400. I heard something drop on his end, maybe a pen, maybe his coffee, maybe his jaw. Fifth, my stock options. I have 52,000 options granted in my 2020 compensation package that vest immediately upon change of control. Dominion's acquisition triggered this provision at the current market value of $22.18 per share, worth $1,153,360. The silence was profound. I could picture Jonathan frantically calculating, his face growing redder with each digit. Sixth, my severance package. Section 8.4 of my employment agreement, available for email if needed, states that if my employment is terminated without cause or I resign for good reason within 24 months of a change of control, I'm entitled to 20 months salary continuation plus benefits. That's $320,000 in salary plus approximately $31,500 in health insurance and other benefits. You're saying we owe you over $1.6 million? His voice had risen a full octave. $1,690,670.41 to be exact, plus interest accruing at the statutory rate of 8% annually per Colorado Revised Statute Section 1-10-101, calculated from August 4th, and since my resignation hasn't taken effect yet, I'm still technically employed, which means I'm still accruing salary at my daily rate of $738.46, still covered by company health insurance, still entitled to all benefits and protections of employment, including my office, email access, corporate credit card, parking space, and participation in the 401k matching program. This is absurd. You can't. Actually, Mr. Winters, I can and I did. I consulted with Elizabeth Hartman at Hartman Employment Law. Perhaps you've heard of her. She has argued 4 cases before the Colorado Supreme Court on employment contract interpretation, winning all 4. She reviewed my resignation letter extensively and assured me it was ironclad. Conditional resignations are perfectly legal in Colorado and have been upheld repeatedly in case law. You forced me to choose between resigning or being terminated. I chose resignation, but I made it conditional upon receiving what I'm legally owed. You accepted my resignation without reading it carefully. That's your mistake, not mine. We'll fight this in court. You absolutely should, I replied pleasantly. Hire expensive lawyers, spend 6 figures on litigation because I have 21 years of documentation showing systematic age discrimination, constructive dismissal, and wrongful termination. I have emails from Cameron Foster dated May 8th explicitly discussing getting rid of expensive, older employees to improve cost structure. I have recordings, legally obtained under Colorado's one-party consent law, of meetings where Logan Pierce discussed replacing me with younger staff who won't question decisions. I have Levi Coleman's text messages from June 22nd calling me a relic who can't adapt to modern business practices. All admissible, time-stamped, and backed up in multiple secure locations. The silence on the other end was the sound of a lawyer realizing his clients had just handed an employee a winning lottery ticket. Or, I continued calmly, or you can pay me what you legally owe me under my employment contract. I'll sign a proper release with mutual non-disparagement clauses, and we all move on. Your choice, Mr. Winters. But note, every day you delay, statutory interest accrues, and every day I remain technically employed, I'm still earning my daily salary. The meter is running. He hung up without saying goodbye. I poured another cup of coffee and waited. 3 hours and 42 minutes later, my phone rang again. Logan Pierce. He was absolutely not calm. "What the hell did you do?" he screamed before I could even say hello. "I resigned, as you requested. You tricked us. You deliberately wrote that resignation, too." "I wrote a legally valid resignation letter, Logan. You accepted it without reading it carefully. You had 4 people in that room, including HR, and none of you apparently noticed that I made my resignation conditional. How is that my fault?" The board is furious. Cameron is getting calls from Dominion headquarters. Our CEO in New York wants to know why we're suddenly on the hook for $1.6 million to a terminated employee. "I haven't been terminated, Logan. That's precisely the point. I'm still employed because my resignation hasn't taken effect yet. We're not paying you a single penny of that bonus or those stock options." "Then don't pay me," I said pleasantly. "Keep me employed. Continue my salary at $14,769.23 per pay period. Keep me on health insurance at $2,625 per month. Let me continue accruing 401k matching contributions. I'll need office access restored, email, and my corporate credit card. Since you've reassigned my responsibilities, I'm essentially being paid to do nothing, and I'm completely fine with that. I can wait as long as you want." He was sputtering now, literally unable to form coherent words. "We'll sue you for what, Logan? Writing a resignation letter using conditional language in a legal document, knowing my rights under my employment contract? Good luck with that lawsuit. But while you're considering litigation, know this: I've already filed a charge with the EEOC for age discrimination. I have documentation of 23 employees over 40 being terminated and replaced with younger workers earning significantly less. I have emails and recordings proving discriminatory intent. That investigation will take months, possibly years, and the longer you drag this out, the more documentation I accumulate and the larger the damages become." He hung up on me. 28 minutes later, my work email was reactivated. Someone at Dominion had panicked and restored my access, probably because a lawyer advised them I was technically still employed and they could face additional legal consequences for locking me out. I logged in and found an email chain between Cameron, Logan, Levi, Jonathan Winters, and 4 other Dominion corporate attorneys. Subject line: urgent, Vaughn resignation issue, legal exposure. They had forwarded my resignation letter to 6 different employment law firms. All 6 confirmed: conditional resignation, legally valid, enforceable. A catastrophically expensive mistake on their part. One lawyer's response was particularly satisfying. "You accepted a conditional resignation without recognizing it was conditional. She's correct about everything: the bonus, the options, the severance. You're on the hook for the full amount unless you want to litigate and risk even bigger damages for age discrimination and wrongful termination. My strong recommendation is immediate settlement." Jonathan Winters called again at 6:18 p.m. "Ms. Vaughn, Dominion would like to discuss a settlement to resolve this matter quickly and amicably." "I'm listening." "We're prepared to offer you $950,000 as full and final settlement of all claims. That includes everything: salary, vacation, expenses, bonus, options, severance. Take it or leave it." "I'll leave it. Thanks." As I explained, you owe me $1,690,670.41 minimum under my contract. If you don't pay, I remain employed indefinitely and will file suit. Discovery will be fascinating. I have 21 years of internal records. Ms. Vaughn, be reasonable. I am being reasonable, Mr. Winters.
I am asking for exactly what my contract entitles me to. Nothing more, nothing less. You tried to force me out with 3 weeks severance after 21 years. That wasn't reasonable. $1.2 million is your final offer, but you have to decide right now. $1,690,670.41 plus attorney's fees of $63,450. Elizabeth has been very busy on my behalf, and I need it via wire transfer within 20 business days. And I want a signed letter of recommendation from Cameron Foster on company letterhead stating I was an exemplary employee who contributed significantly to Ascense's success, and a mutual non-disparagement clause. If Mr. Foster won't comply, then I remain employed and file suit tomorrow morning. Your choice, Mr. Winters. But note, every day you delay costs you an additional $73,846 in daily salary, plus benefits and accruing interest. Once I file suit, the settlement will also include emotional distress damages, punitive damages for age discrimination, and attorney's fees, which will be substantially higher. The price goes up the longer you wait. He called back at 8:47 p.m. Deal. We'll wire the funds within 20 business days. You'll receive the letter of recommendation by Friday. Our lawyers will send the settlement agreement for your review by tomorrow afternoon. On September 3, 2025, at 1:18 p.m., I received a wire transfer for $1,754,120.41, full settlement plus attorney's fees. The same day, FedEx delivered a signed letter of recommendation on Dominion Corporate Holdings letterhead with Cameron Foster's signature, praising my 21 years of exemplary service, operational excellence, and invaluable contributions to Ascens systems. I seriously doubt he wrote a single word himself. Elizabeth reviewed all 52 pages of the settlement agreement, standard release language, mutual non-disparagement clauses, and confidentiality provisions regarding settlement terms. I signed it on September 6th. My resignation officially became effective on September 6th, 2025 at 3:22 p.m. I was no longer an employee of Ascens Systems. I had successfully negotiated a $1.75 million severance package from a company that had tried to force me out with $11,077. The epilogue is deeply satisfying. Cameron Foster lasted exactly 7 more months at Ascens before being fired in April 2026 for missing quarterly targets by 31%. Turns out that firing all your experienced employees and replacing them with people who don't know how anything works doesn't actually improve operations. Logan Pierce quit in March 2026, citing irreconcilable differences with corporate leadership. The irony wasn't lost on me. Levi Coleman is still there as of this writing, managing a company hemorrhaging clients because no one remembers how to maintain legacy systems, who critical vendor contacts are, or why certain processes exist. 4 of my former team members contacted me for advice after receiving similar ultimatums. I connected all of them with Elizabeth. 3 have successfully negotiated 6-figure settlements. The 4th remains employed while the company calculates how expensive it will be to pay her what they legally owe. As for me, I'm semi-retired at 46. I do occasional consulting for medium-sized companies, charging $575 per hour, helping with operational optimization and process improvement. My specialty has become career defense planning, helping experienced employees document everything, understand their contracts, and protect themselves when management tries to push them out. I've been contacted by 19 different people in the past year, all facing similar situations, all systematically pushed out by companies that view experienced employees as expensive liabilities rather than valuable assets. I teach them what my father taught me: know your rights, document everything, and never let people in suits bully you just because they have fancy titles. The lesson isn't about being vindictive or greedy. It's about understanding that when you work somewhere for 21 years, when you build systems, relationships, and institutional knowledge, you have value that can't be replaced easily. When a company tries to discard that value for pennies on the dollar, you have every right to demand what you're legally owed. Never sign anything without reading it 3 times. Never assume corporate executives are smarter than you. They're often just more confident and better dressed. Never underestimate someone with decades of experience and competent legal counsel. And always, always know what your employment contract actually says. Not what you think it says, not what someone told you it says, what it actually says. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting exactly what you're owed.